Morning, everybody. My name is Cindy Norcott, and I am the owner of a recruitment company called Pro Talent. This morning, Regent Business School have asked me to come and chat to you all about managing stress. And I can imagine for many of you at this time of the year, this is possibly the most stressful time. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving up your time to listen to me today. And I really hope that I can share some simple practical tips that will help you, especially for those of you who are either in the middle of your studies or those of you who are even trying to juggle both studies as well as work, whether it's full-time or part-time. Dr. Blom was going to join us today, but unfortunately she cannot make it. So you've got me on my own. What I'd love to encourage you to do is put some questions in the chat, put some comments in the chat, and after about 40 minutes or so, I will then go to the chat and answer any questions you might have. Hopefully I can add some value to you all. But I think at the moment, when I meet people and I say, how are you? It's amazing how many people are, when I ask them, how are you really? They're saying, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm overwhelmed. There's so much on my plate. I'm not sure if any of you can relate to that feeling right now. But for me, I often feel stressed myself. I run a busy business. I head up a charity called the Robin Hood Foundation. I'm a motivational speaker, an author, a business coach, a wife, a mom. And, you know, many of us are juggling all these roles. And we often feel like, gosh, we need like a clone because there's so much on our plates. And I think for many of us, we might have even lost the ability to handle stress well. So I thought, let's just start from the beginning. You know, a lot of people say, I am stressed. So what is stress? I think let's just have a look at what the dictionary says. It's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension. So mental or emotional strain or tension, which is resulting from adverse or demanding conditions. And let's be honest, many of us, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, have experienced adverse or demanding conditions. So it therefore seems likely that stress would be a natural response to that. It's also your body's reaction to a challenge or demand. So you experience it in your body. So stress isn't always bad. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm stressed. You know, I was trying to cross the road and a bus came towards me and I got a fright and I jumped out of the way. Stress is there to protect us from danger. And it also helps us in short bursts to meet deadlines. So let's imagine a very busy time at work or when you've got a varsity or college deadline and you're trying to meet that deadline, the stress can keep you going. It kind of provides the adrenaline to keep going. But I think the problem that many of us on this call might be experiencing is that we've been going for too long. The stress is endemic. It's just part of our lives. It just keeps going and it can affect our health. And also, prolonged stress can lead to anxiety, even when the thing that stressed you out is no longer there. So basically, our cortisol levels or adrenaline gets so high that it sort of stays in that space and it never comes down. And then a small thing can set us off, but then it's very, very hard to bring those stress levels down. So I want to just chat to you about some ideas on how we can manage the stress we might feel. And for you, it could be from anything. It could be, you know, unrealistic work demands. It could be financial pressure. It could be personal, relationship problems. It could be anything that could cause you stress. And we are human, and we generally don't get to choose what traumatizes us or upsets us. But one thing I've realized is when you are trying to work and study together, it's incredibly stressful. We live in a country where there are a lot of environmental stresses, safety and security. I mean, even issues with things like water, you know, electricity, you know, various items are problematic for us. So I think for a lot of people, the stresses are, how will I make a living? How will I get from where I am to where I want to be? So I'm in a position now where I'm growing my career or I'm learning skills, but I'm really not sure how I'm going to get to that place where I can actually start a family, where I can move out of the parents' house. How will I cope? how do I cope now, but how will I cope in the future? And for many of us, there are many, many obstacles in our paths. So one thing I wanted to share with you is there's very little difference between stress and excitement. So when I'm stressed, my heart rate goes up, my blood pumps, and the blood flows to the extremities. When I'm excited, it's the same thing. The only difference is how we feel about it. So sometimes I think one of the best things we can do is also reframe things. Sometimes we talk ourselves into a negative state by when people ask us, how are you? I'm stressed. But sometimes we could also reframe it into, actually, I'm quite excited. I know I'm going to ace that exam, or I've got a lot on my plate, but it's very busy. And it's something that's juiced me up, and it's, I'm enthusiastic and excited. So a few things I want to talk about. So many people I know, when they're under pressure, the first thing they do is they decide to sleep less. So what they do is they work into the night, they get up early in the morning, and many of you would have experienced that because we don't have enough time. But taking sleep is almost borrowing tomorrow's serotonin. So we're using tomorrow's happy hormones today to take to keep ourselves going. So things that I would encourage you to do is try and get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You might have to take time from work or take time from other areas, but your sleep needs to be a foundation if you want to cope well under stress. So I would encourage maybe in the day, if you can, having a power nap, if that's at all possible. You don't want to be caught taking one at work though. Try and get to bed at the same time every single day, every single night. No blue screen an hour before bed. I think that's so important. You know how many people will go to bed, and what they'll do is they will sit on their phone, or they'll be on their computer, or they'll be gaming or doing online shopping, or they'll be watching TV right up until the time they go to bed. And what it does is it actually damages the brainwaves from the point of view that you cannot calm down. So you end up having bad quality sleep. The other thing is not to have any lights on in your room. So if you can have blackout curtains, and then the other thing is to have your phone outside of the room. There are sort of energetic rays that come off your cell phone, off your devices, that could hamper your sleep. So I think we must do everything that we can in our power to ensure good sleep. This really is a foundation. And no caffeine before bed. Try not have caffeine. Some people are very sensitive to caffeine and can't even have caffeine after 12 in the afternoon. But listen to your body. But I think the most important thing is let's use sleep as a great foundation. The other thing I find is when people are busy and they're under pressure and they're working and they're studying, what they tend to do is not exercise because they think, well, it's a waste of time. I need to sit at my desk and absorb as much as I can, or I need to finish this written assignment or read all these notes. And they tend to just sit and sit and sit. And then what happens is your energy actually plummets with every extra. There's a saying, sitting is the new smoking. So I would encourage you, there's research that says that students who participate in regular exercise experience lower levels of perceived stress. Remember, stress about how I feel as well. Try a little bit of yoga, try a little bit of stretching, try taking a little walk, but doing this on a regular basis, not just once a day, especially if you're just sitting at a desk all the time. Try and get up every 60 to 90 minutes at the absolute minimum. And I know it seems counterintuitive because often I meet people and they'll say, you won't believe it. I sat at my desk for 4 hours. I didn't move. Well, the reality is our brains don't work well for 4 hours. So you actually are not doing yourself a service. And so often the things we think we are doing to help ourselves in a stressful situation are actually not helping. They're actually hurting us. I think one element of managing stress and coping with, whether it's exams, whether it's work, is to be organized and have a plan. So just in terms of being organized, let's just say you are working from your home, say you're working from your bedroom or your dining room or your table at home. Keep your work materials in one place and keep your study materials in another place. I think a lot of people merge the two and it gets quite messy. I would also encourage you to start as soon as possible with every single assignment deadline. I know that makes common sense, but I know a lot of people who tend to procrastinate. Why do people procrastinate? Often it creates a certain amount of stress, which then makes them work hard to that limit. But the problem with that is that it's creating extra stress on you. Whereas if you were just to calmly and, just systematically do an hour or two every day instead of trying to do 10 hours on one day, it would probably make a big difference. And that's the same for work assignments as well as for personal studies. I think the important thing as well is to schedule time to study. Listen to your body clock. Some people are great morning people, some are night owls. So if you're not a night owl, you might find that you're not great to study from 8 till 11. But some people can't get up at 4 in the morning. So work out what is your ideal time. When is your energy right? And when are you feeling at your best? And then use that time. Also clear your room, clear your desk, make sure that everything around you is calm. They say when everything inside you is crazy, try and calm the environment around you. And there's a saying, a cluttered desk is the sign of a cluttered mind. So, we want, it's called the distance of distractions. We want to put everything that distracts us far away from us. And then when I think about looking at stress, we don't want to create unnecessary stress for ourselves. There's already so many deadlines. There's so many things at work. There's a constant war for attention. Everybody wants us. I mean, those of you who are sitting on this call, say you're not at your computer or not near your phone or you're not at your emails, you know that by the time an hour has passed, you're going to go back and the world has called you. There's WhatsApps, there's missed calls, there's emails. So we've got to work out if my studying is my number one priority or my work is my number one priority. It means I need to focus on this and try and create a distance to all these other distractions and get to them when I have time. The important thing to know is when you are juggling multiple things, time and energy are your scarcest resources. What's the point of saving time if you don't have the energy to study or to do what you need to do for work or for your life? So I would encourage you, whenever you're doing something with your time, to say, is this the best use of my time right now? And then another question to ask yourself, is this action that I'm taking me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? And then with energy, I would ask you to ask yourself, I want to do things that are minimum energy and high impact. I don't want to be doing stuff that takes so much energy and gives me a little bit of impact. So when you are making a decision about what to do, whether it's at work or whether it's for your studies, is to ask yourself, is it low energy, high impact? And always try and go for that. What is the best use of my time? What is the best use of my energy? And what is the least amount of energy I can expend for the maximum results? I also think an important thing is when we're trying to plan and when we're looking at our big pile of commitments and deadlines and all the things you've got to do, is the first step, and something I've battled with my whole life, is being realistic. There's a term called chrono-optimism. It's when people happily underestimate how long anything will take. So what I would suggest is when you are trying to create a study schedule, you're trying to work out plan your week in advance, if you know that you always underestimate how long things take, add extra time, maybe double the amount of time you think you need per chapter or per subject, per assignment, or for whatever work project you might have. Because I think so often we put ourselves under pressure because we're not realistic and we don't listen to that inner voice that when we're planning, we're thinking, I wonder how this is going to work. Rather create margin so that things go wrong, you've got a little bit of time, and not work with a very last minute deadline. I've heard of so many people who've been trying to send in assignments and there's been load shedding. They're blaming load shedding, but the fact is they were there at the very last minute trying to submit an assignment. The other thing I've realized is when prioritizing. So for instance, let's just say right now, your studies are the most important thing. You really want to do well in your exams. It means that if you're going to take time to work extra hard on your studies and to do your very, very best, it means you have to take time from somewhere else. So that means you're going to have to say no. And I recently heard a saying that the secret of success is not saying no to the things you don't want to do. It's saying no to the things you do want to do. So somebody might say, would you like to come to movies? Would you like to go for dinner? Of course you would love to do that, but it means we're going to have to say some very, very definite no's so that we are eliminating all the distractions around us for the season. Remember, this is not your whole life. This is a season, and this requires an extra human, a supernatural effort as such from our part. I would put aside a small amount of time every week, though, for some exercise and for some socializing, but keeping it to a minimum, the socializing, but keep the exercise a little bit higher, because that blood flow really helps your brain work. There are so many schools of thoughts about how long, how often we should break. Some schools of thought say every 15 to 20 minutes we should take a break. My suggestion would be every 40 to 50 minutes, take a break from your studying or even from your work. Get up, move around, grab a coffee, grab a water, but don't just sit down forever and think that you're doing yourself a favor. You probably aren't. Then I think an important thing is to ask, what can I cut out of my schedule? If I'm really battling with juggling work, juggling studies, or my studies are so demanding, what can I cut out? Maybe there are certain hobbies or interests or commitments that I've got that can be sort of taken away for the month, or where I can say not this month. Or maybe there's certain things I need to let go of because they no longer serve me, because now my focus is on building my career or building my studies. I really think planning ahead is essential. Something I do every single week, regardless of whether I'm in a busy patch or studying or not, is I look at my whole wheel of life, and I look at my studies, I look at my business, I look at my finances, I look at my personal life, I look at my friendships and my community, and I ask myself one question for each of those sections. What is the action I'm going to take this week that will take me closer to my goal? And I will then create a list of the things I do. I don't always get everything done in a week, and I would encourage you, if you are doing to-do lists, don't make them too big. That causes tremendous stress in itself. And those of you on this call who are used to to-do lists will understand what I'm saying. Something I've only recently started doing in the last 2 years is I have a master list of everything I want to do, everything I want to achieve. But then what I do is I break it down for the next day. No more than 7 to 10 items, because otherwise we create our own internal stress. It's not coming from anybody else. It's coming from ourselves. And then what happens is we become so concerned about all the things we haven't done. And you can't do 80 different things in a day. You might be able to do 6 or 7. And then I would also encourage you to be kind to yourself, to give yourself permission not to finish everything on your list, because every day is unpredictable in most of our lives. So we've got the plan, but then how we execute it, we might only get 80% done. And I think that's okay. But the people who plan generally get way further than those who don't. So if I could encourage you, if you've never planned before, start planning now. But now I would encourage you then, okay, so you've got this plan, you've got this list of all these things you want to do. The next thing is to prioritize the plan. Because so many people stop there. They've got a plan, but not all items on your to-do list or on your plan or even in your study schedule are equal. So the question to ask is, what is the one thing, if I do it on this list, will reach the most impact? What is the one thing that will make the biggest difference to my studying or to my work? And then do that one thing, and do that one thing first. I think that's so important. I also encourage you, if you've got assignments and you've got due dates, try and get them done at least 1 to 2 days before. I meet so many people who are putting themselves under tremendous pressure because they're working so close to the wire. Try and get to a point where you are on top of things so that you always have a day or two to play with, and that you're not, I know it's not always possible, and I know you don't always get lecturers who will give you those nice deadlines. But wherever possible, try and work so that you always have at least a 24-hour to 48-hour reprieve for the deadline, just in case something happens. And also just with your to-do list, every task you do or you've put on your to-do list, break it into smaller tasks as well. I think that's so important. But I would also say be flexible. So you might say, this week I'm doing this, and then this week you have a cold, or this week somebody in your family is sick, or this week you have a problem at work, or load shedding that hampers you. So I would encourage you to have the plan, but be flexible with the plan, and don't be hard on yourself if you don't achieve absolutely every single thing you thought you might achieve. This isn't just for studies, this is for life. I meet so many people who they disregard the 10 great things they did, and all they focus on is the one thing that they didn't do. When we are studying, when we are working, when we're trying to be super achievers, we need to look at what is in the way of our productivity, what is in the way that would cause us stress that we could eliminate even before it happens. So many of us are working in open plan offices, and there's a saying, we teach people how to treat us. So let's just say that you're very open and friendly and cordial and approachable. This might not work in your favor. You might even have a job where you are leading a team or supervising a team, and everyone feels that they can come up to you. But because you're in an open plan office, you can't hide anywhere. Or in your home, you might find that you don't have the luxury of having your own room or your own space. I think it's so important to negotiate with people and to say, listen, I need this time on my own, or find a gap, find a space. So to eliminate interruptions. And sometimes some of you might understand that you've got a chatty colleague or somebody who just loves to share every single thought with you. I think to have a kind but courageous conversation with those people, to say, this is a really stressful patch right now, I need to focus. Can we catch up afterwards? Or just this week, let me focus on my exams. I am under pressure. Don't let other people invade your energy and your time where possible. The other thing is, I find a lot of people are studying on computers. They're working on computers. Now, one of the biggest time wasters and the biggest interruptions in our lives would be email or WhatsApps. So if you are, say, for instance, you've allocated 2 hours after this call to study, I would encourage you, turn email notifications off and turn WhatsApp notifications off, or put your phone in another room. Because what happens is we hear that little, even if it's on vibrate, we can hear that little thing, or we can see the screen light up. And every time we do that, we are taking our focus off what we are doing. And we're thinking of, I wonder who it is, I wonder what's going on. The other thing is, I think so many of us have equated answering emails and messages as a sign of efficiency. I get through every email every day, I answer every WhatsApp. I think the important thing is to say, is that the main purpose of your day? Are you a receiver and issuer of emails, or are you there to do your job? Or are you there, is your main intention to get your studying done? And I think so many of us are wasting a lot of time by being constantly available and responding to every single ping and every single email that comes in. I would also encourage you, I know many of us have smartphones and we get weekly screen times. I'm not sure about you, but I know a lot of people who are spending 7-8 hours a day on their phone. And I think it's something that is such a time gobbler. So I would encourage you to look at that screen time and say, how do I get it down? The other thing I would also encourage you to do, you don't want to create stress for yourself, but a lot of people, what they do is when they take a break from studying, they go onto social media. But the problem with social media is it's designed to suck us in. Have you often thought, I'll just check my feed, and then before you know it, 40 minutes have gone. So I would encourage you, if you do take a little break for your social media, put a timer on. Put 10 minutes, and when that timer goes, have the discipline to say, I'm getting off there. But I would also encourage you, if you're in a very, very busy patch and you are, maybe you're writing final exams, maybe it's your final year, maybe it's a really, really important time, why not take a social media detox and say, for this 2-week period, I'm not getting on social media. You'll be surprised, firstly, by how much energy you save, but secondly, you'll be surprised by how much extra time you have. And I don't know about you, but a lot of people are spending far too much time on social media. And, all it's doing is it's making them feel more stressed about the work they're not doing. I would also find out what are the distractions. You might find that social media is not your problem, but the TV is always blaring, or you've gotten caught up in a series on Netflix. So I think it's an important thing to say, what are the interruptions that I'm allowing, and how do I reduce them? And sometimes it is having conversations with people to say, listen, this is a busy time. I need to reduce anything that's in the way of my focus. I also think things that I've used when studying is incentivizing myself. So for instance, when I finish this chapter, I'll get up and make a cup of coffee. Or when I've done the deadline, I will go for a walk. I know it sounds little, but I think sometimes we've got to fool our minds. We've got to actually create little things to look forward to and create little disciplines, because otherwise we just end up literally procrastinating. I know people who started gardening or cooking when they were studying because they just didn't really feel like that. They didn't really have the discipline to apply themselves, in a systematic way to their studies. The other thing is, another technique when we're dealing with stress is to practice mindfulness. So often what's happening is our minds are not in tune with our bodies. We just know we're stressed. We just know, and we're creating a spiral of even more stress and anxiety. So I'd encourage you, if you are feeling stressed, or whenever you are feeling, whether it's stress or anxiety or anything related, is to be aware of the present moment. How am I feeling? How am I feeling in my body? And is this helpful? And then, a lot of people will also say, what can I smell? What can I see? What can I taste? What am I feeling in my body? And they will literally ground themselves to the present moment, because often what happens is when we're stressed, all we're doing is thinking about the future, thinking about the deadline, thinking about all the work we haven't done. So I would encourage you to try and be mindful. Take a moment to just center yourself in the moment. And then, I think it's an important thing. And breathing, just even if you are feeling stressed, take a minute or two to breathe. Breathe in for 3 counts or 4 counts. Hold your breath for 3 or 4 counts. Breathe out for 3 or 4 counts. Do that 3, 4, 5 times. And even if you set an alarm for that, every time you take a break, do a breathing exercise. A lot of the times we wonder why we're not thinking clearly. And it's because we are doing shallow breathing because we're stressed, or because we are hunched over our computers and we're not actually expanding our lungs. And as a result, we're not thinking clearly. And then on that note, stretch, stretch, stretch. So often we are literally poring over our devices or over books or over paper, and that's not really a helpful thing. I'd also encourage you, if you are studying and if you are working, develop a routine as much as you can. I know for many of us, every day is different, but they've done secrets of success of the most successful people, and most of the incredibly successful people in the world have got brilliant habits, and it all comes down to the start of the day, the morning routine. So what do you do in the morning? Do you push snooze again and again? Are you getting up early? Can you get up even earlier? Right now we're in summer. It's so easy. 4:35, it's light. It's a wonderful time to get up early if you can. But develop a routine. This is what I do, and then this is what I do, and then that's what I do. I know a lot of people, they put their clothes out the night before. They've got their to-do list on their desk the night before. Lunch is packed if they're going to work. So all they're doing is they're actually putting an investment in tomorrow, today, rather than starting the day, the alarm didn't go off, and then being late and having a problem. The other piece of advice as well is don't multitask. So many of us, mistakenly believe that we can watch TV, listen to music, study, talk to people. It really, really doesn't work. Try where possible to use as much focus as possible in that moment. The other thing with multitasking is it actually increases your heart rate and your blood pressure. So when we're trying to do two things at once, we might feel like we are succeeding, but it's actually physiologically having an impact on our health. So wherever you are, be there. Do the one thing at a time. I love that saying, you cannot ride two horses with one backside. So focus on the one horse that's in front of you and then focus on the other horse. I know a lot of people as well who are trying to work and study at work. They probably aren't allowed to do that, but they're trying and do both and bluff that they're doing the one. And that can cause tremendous stress. I think that's so important. Also, when you say you're doing some research on something for varsity or college, I would say close unused tabs in your browser as well, because it's so easy to get caught into what else there is on your screen. So we want to literally eliminate as many distractions as possible. It's so important. I think for me as well, try and put your phone on airplane mode so that you're not getting those calls. Also have a boundary in place with your phone. For instance, I don't look at my phone after 9 at night, or when I come home from work and, I get ready for my studies at night, I will not look at my phone for 2 hours or 3 hours, or at work, I won't. I think so many of us have just told everyone we're so available because we're always responding. And that's a huge cause of stress as well. Another thing that I find a lot of people, I think, could help with stress is doing mock exams, doing as many old exam papers as possible, feeling incredibly prepared. Sometimes we have stress because we aren't really prepared. We haven't actually put in the hours of work, and that is not in our favor at all. So, I would also encourage you, even progressive muscle relaxation. I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept, but it's tensing and relaxing the muscles in your body one by one. So imagine you tensed your arms, your hands, and let them go. Tensed your shoulders, let them go. What this does, it increases blood flow, but it also helps you be more present in the moment, and it can really, really relieve stress. So if you try that a couple of times every day while studying, this could surely be quite an important thing for you. I remember when I was at university, I used to take energy drinks when I was studying. And what would happen is, many of my friends were doing it as well. And we would literally start shaking and you wouldn't be able to get to sleep because there was so much caffeine. So just be careful about what you are putting into your body. You might be better off without the sugar, without the carbs, without the energy drinks, but maybe with something a little bit more natural. Is that working for you? Is that creating extra stress? Now, if you are taking those energy drinks and they're making you shake, it almost creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where you start feeling more stressed. Meanwhile, it's from the substance you've consumed rather than actual stress from your exams. I would also encourage you to build a support network. So if you are studying, say through correspondence, or you're studying, or you don't have a study group, try and find a study group. Try and get a network of people that you can talk to. Maybe you can form a group of like-minded people just to connect with and to support each other. Also, I think let your family in. Let them, communicate with them that you do need their support. You might not be able to do all the chores or the duties that you usually do. You might need a break from certain things. You might not be able to socialize as much as possible, but communicate where you are. I find often when people are under stress, they keep their answers short and clipped, and then the family don't know what's going on. I would also say carry a water bottle with you, have water with you the whole time. You want to be hydrated. Also, there's a direct link between anxiety and your kidneys. So a lot of people, when they think they're anxious, they actually are just thirsty and dehydrated. Apparently, your colon needs 900 milliliters of water to work in a day. Many of us are not even having 900 mils. And that means your colon isn't even working. And then you haven't even supplied water for your brain and all the other organs that need water. So I'd say one of the best, silliest, most simple things is water. It's breathing, it's movement, it's focus, it's discipline, it's boundaries. I would also say when we're eating something and we need a snack, and I know many of us, when we're studying, we need more food. Remember, our brain is a very expensive organ. It takes so much energy. Try and choose something that's from a tree and not from a factory. So something natural, whether it's fruit or whether it's nuts or vegetables, rather than sweets or biscuits or chocolates. And then also, I know a lot of people, when they're under pressure, they will go for nicotine. They'll either smoke or they'll vape. And that in itself is also adding to your stress. It is actually not, the long-term effect of that is that it's not actually helping your body. So what I would like to share with you is just a few other tips now on managing your stress. So if you can and you are stressed, maybe write down the things that you're worrying about. I'm worried that I don't understand this subject. I'm worried that I failed this exam. I'm worried that I'm not putting in enough effort to work. Whatever those things are, write them down so that you can see them. Sometimes when you've looked at them logically, after a period of time, you can go, is that true? Is that really true? How do I know it's true? Often what happens is the things we worry about firstly, they haven't happened yet, or they are not entirely true. We don't have to believe everything we think. So write down all those things that worry you. I think it's important to celebrate any success. Every time, yes, I got through this chapter. Yes, I got through this subject. Celebrate. It's hard to study. Basically, we have to fight ourselves. It is an energetic demand. There's so many demands on us when we study. So every time you get through something, give yourself a high five, and maybe even treat yourself when you've passed an exam or when you've finished a subject. Get enough sunlight. So often what we're doing is we are feeling a little depressed, but it's because we don't have enough vitamin D. So I would encourage you, if you could get out in nature, when one of your study breaks a day, try and get 5 to 15 minutes of sunlight. What it does is it creates vitamin D, which then also is a feel-good chemical in your body. And in South Africa, we have so much sunlight, yet so many people need antidepressants because they have no vitamin D, or they need vitamin D supplements. And then on that note, there's a real move at the moment towards grounding. A lot of people have realized the importance of being in nature and sitting in the ground, on the ground with their feet, bare feet on the ground. And what it's doing is it actually reduces inflammation, which comes from stress. So I know these are silly little tips, practical little things that you might go, oh my gosh, that's so basic. But what I'm saying is, I think if you took 3 or 4 or 5 of these little tips, they could make an amazing impact on you. But what do? We sometimes move from the desk, we're exhausted, and then we go and sit in front of the TV and take a break. But what about actually spending time in the sunlight, taking our shoes off, sitting on the ground, sitting on the grass? And then the other thing, you might laugh, but if you have a pet, to hug your pet. I know it's crazy, but there's so much research that animals, are just touching animals and hugging animals has an amazing stress reliever in it. So I would really encourage you to do that as well. I would also encourage you not to skip breakfast if you're studying. A lot of people, what happens is they get to a point where they are so hungry that what they'll do is they'll make a bad choice, and they'll end up taking something that's high in sugar and high in carbohydrates. So I think that's so important. I also think that when you are studying and you are working, sometimes you need to set very clear boundaries at work. I know a lot of people who have jobs and they are studying for exams, but they've never ever asked the employer for study leave or for leave to write exams. They've just taken the odd little bit of leave. But negotiate with your employer where possible. Do you mind if I can take the morning before the exam? Or can I take this afternoon off? And really don't put yourself under too much pressure, and don't be a martyr. If you don't ask in life, you don't get what you want. So I would definitely ask for leave where possible. I also think that many of us, we don't need an enemy because we are so hard on ourselves. We expect the study timetable to go perfectly. We expect to get A's when we don't necessarily always understand a subject. So I think to be realistic about our expectations of ourselves and to be kind to ourselves as well. Some days you can accomplish amazing things, and other days you might get through an hour and that's it. And I think understand that is how your body is working. There are some days when you are much more productive than other days. I would encourage you as well, when you're studying and working hard and under pressure, try and do something for yourself, something fun every single day, whether it's taking your dog for a walk, whether it's having a great bubble bath with a candle, whether it's having a little power nap, whether it's phoning a great friend, but try and do something every day that'll be your fun, that will break your routine. Because what I find is a lot of people are saying, all I do is work. And when I'm not working, I'm studying. And when I'm not doing that, I'm sleeping. And there's just seems to be no end to the cycle of continuous work. And I think we do need to shake it up. The other thing I want to share about stress is comparison. How many of us get so much stress because we're comparing? Oh, so-and-so is doing the same course as me, and I know that they're getting cum laude and I'm barely passing. Your competition is yourself, and your comparison should only be, this is me now, and this was me last year. And how have I improved? How have I grown? How have I, become a better version of myself? How have I overcome obstacles and challenges? How have I achieved the goals? And, what are the goals I'm setting for next year? It can't be comparisons with other people. I think that's an important one. And then I think sometimes we get so stressed, so bogged down in everything that we're doing that we actually lose our perspective. Everything is, if I fail, my life is over. And I would say, just put things in perspective. Sometimes we do fail. So what? We have to do it next year, or we have to do another semester. Sometimes we turn it into a life or death situation, and we equate, I failed this exam, therefore I am a failure. It does not mean that. I failed this exam, it means I have to do it again. It means I need to learn something new. It means I need to change my approach. I think so often what we do is we get caught up in the hysteria of exam times. And then I would also encourage you, if you're sitting there and you're saying, Cindy, I'm anxious, I don't know quite what to do, I would also encourage you then to speak to a professional. There's SADAG, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. They take thousands of calls every day, going to see a psychologist, a counselor, if you are feeling stressed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to you if anybody has any questions. But as I say, I just want to wrap up with the fact that it is stressful trying to juggle work and studies. It's stressful just trying to study and worry about the future. These are stressful moments. It's normal to have stress as such. Not all stress is negative. Sometimes the stress is what we need to kick us into a higher gear. But what we don't want is prolonged stress that leads to tremendous anxiety. And where we notice that every single day we feel we are not coping, we always feel overwhelmed, and we always feel that we are hectic and we don't have enough time. If that is the case, then that is not a helpful state to be in. We can control so many elements of stress. We can control our breathing. We control how we move our body. We can control how much time we spend focusing. We can control what we fuel into our body through water, vitamins, food, whether we're taking too much caffeine or nicotine, sugar, carbohydrates. We can control our responses. We can control, the way we plan and prioritize. And I think that's what I really wanted to share with you today, is that exam time isn't something that happens to you. A busy patch isn't something that we are only at the mercy of. I think there are so many elements that we can control. And what my encouragement to you is to work on, what are those elements that I can control that I have not been in control of, and that going forward I can do? What is the one thing that if I adopt it now will push the needle the most going forward, so that I will be a lot more calm, a lot more focused? That's where I'm at. Has anybody got any questions, any comments? I would love to hear from you if you have anything that I can help you with. Sarah, can we let Sarah speak? Is that possible? Okay, Senamila has asked something. What would you recommend for anxiety that is followed by extreme panic attacks? So some people battle with panic attacks. That does come from extreme anxiety. I think the first thing I would encourage people to do is anxiety has a lot to do with breathing. Anxiety also has a lot to do with a skewed perception of a situation. And I think it creates its own self-fulfilling prophecy. So the minute one feels a little bit stressed and anxious about something, I think it's to try and take yourself out of that situation, start looking at it with a different perspective and go, is it true? How am I feeling? Try and work with all those senses. What am I feeling around me? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? Because it helps you get out of that emotional state into more of a logical state. And to practice breathing, and also to communicate with someone close to you if you are feeling that way, so that they can also be a buddy. If I know Sarah raised her hand and Fatima raised their hand, would you like to share something? I'm not sure if they can be unblocked. If anyone would like to share something, just unblock yourself. The other thing I just wanted to share as well is I know a lot of people who get panic attacks, often it's preceded by too much caffeine, or it is preceded by being dehydrated as well. So if you do suffer from panic attacks, just make sure that you are dehydrated, that you're not dehydrated. Nazira has asked, what should I do when unexpected things mess up my study plan for the day? I think that's where flexibility comes in. We can get so frustrated and so rigid, where we're going, today I have to do 7 chapters or 3 chapters. I have to do, sometimes you've got to say, well, this has happened, whether, often these are things out of our control. But I think if it's happening all the time, then I'd say the question to ask myself would be, are my boundaries not right? Am I completely unrealistic? Am I allowing people to put their urgency on my agenda? Am I not being assertive enough? Because sometimes what we do is we're there for everyone else, and a family member and a staff member, and everybody's putting their urgency onto us. So for me, when one of my sayings is, you do not get to put your urgency on my agenda. My agenda is my agenda. But, you might have times where it doesn't work out, and you might have to put in a little bit of extra time that night, or you might have to say, today hasn't worked out. How can I catch up tomorrow or the next day? And that's why I think it's so important that we create a plan with margin for error. So there's always an extra half an hour or more every day that is not allocated. Because I think what we do is when we stress, we work so close to the wire that it doesn't work for us. Are there any other comments or questions? If nobody's asking any questions, I think another thing I'd like to just share as well is what is the antidote to stress? There's a lot of psychology and a lot of talks on the power of gratitude. And I know this might sound almost a little bit lame or simple, but essentially, so many of us get caught up in how stressed we are. We sit there and we go, I've got so much work. I've got so many deadlines. It's so unfair. This lecture is so demanding. The subject is ridiculously hard. And we create our own sort of hemisphere around ourselves, which is not necessarily always great. So I would encourage to monitor those thoughts and monitor those words. When people are asking me how I am I telling them the negative stuff? Am I creating, it's like those people who come to you at work and say, I'm so busy, but they're always busy. They're always telling you how busy, and you wonder if they actually are. So instead of saying to people, I'm hectic and I'm stressed, Say to people, I'm really thriving. I'm working well. Start the positives every day. At the end of the day, record your wins. Today I got through 3 pages. Yeah, I wanted to get through 10, but I got through 3. I finished this chapter. I managed to balance my work and my life well. I think those are very, very important things to do. And stop using words that trigger us. I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm depressed. And again, try and hang around people who are positive and who are encouraging as well, and who are not feeding your stress storm. Here's a question from Kalia. She says, how do you handle the stress that other people create when not doing their work in time, which delays your schedule? And I think that's a daily struggle for many of us. So we work in teams, and we've got other team players who are not as committed as we are. Then they don't have as much of a sense of urgency. And I think sometimes nagging doesn't work. You might find that they don't respect you, they don't respect your stress, they don't respect your schedule. And I think my advice would be having a crucial conversation with that person, Kalia. So I would sit down with that person and say, listen, this is where we're at. When this happens, this is how I feel, and this is the impact that it has on my job. And then further down the line, for instance, customers are complaining to me, or it leads me to work late. Let's come up with a solution. Because often what happens, I find, is sometimes when colleagues are not getting to their work, our temptation is to take the work away from them and do it ourselves, or to have an eruption where we are so emotional, and that's not helpful either. So maybe just to explain what you have to do once the work comes to you, and how long that takes, and what are the consequences to you for having those delays, what the stress that it will cause upon yourself. And if that doesn't work, then you have every right to go to management to say, listen, this is where I'm at. It's causing undue stress on me because of the person further down the line not reaching, not meeting their deadlines. To me, that should be an assertive conversation. Everyone's working as a team. And if one person or people further down the line are creating stress for you, that's not fair. And remember, ongoing stress causes anxiety. It causes overwhelm. So I would nip these things in the bud. And remember that saying I said earlier, teach people how to treat you. And the best way to do it is not an emotional attack, but a one-on-one assertive conversation. This is how I feel when this happens. Never saying you should, must, always, never, not those words, but basically coming up and saying, let's find a solution. Let's find a better way, because I don't want to be mean to you. I don't want to have to shout and perform and get stressed. But at the same time, how can I help you help me? And let's find a solution. And going to the person is always better than telling others. You'd only go up the line if you haven't found a solution with that person. Are there any other questions or comments? I'd love to hear from you, even if somebody has their own suggestion on how to manage stress. I think that's important to share. I know for me, when I'm under stressful patches, things that work really, really well are also having a little massage. Those work amazingly well. Also taking time to read a book if you are working online. It just changes things a little bit. It changes your pace as well. Norma Pelo has asked, would you recommend the use of pharmaceutical drugs to deal with stress? I think there's a place for them. Yes, there is. I know a lot of people will first try something more natural, something more herbal. There are a lot of natural stress medications that one can use. But I think if you find that your stress is way out of control, then I would encourage you to see a GP or a doctor to deal with the stress. But you might find that might just be putting a plaster on the stress. You might find that the best thing that you could do is actually go and see a psychologist or a counselor or somebody who's equipped to say, what are the causes of the stress? Often the stress is our own internal dialogue. It's the way we think. It's us, our minds. We are sort of sitting there going, I'm not coping, I'm not coping. So if you feel that I'm not coping, you've got to ask yourself, is it really true? Is it really true that I'm not coping? What do I need more of? So remember those coaching questions. What do I need to stop doing that's not working for me? You might find that you're drinking too much coffee, or you might find that you are, you might be unhappy about something else, and that's causing it as well. Or maybe you need extra lessons in a subject that you're not understanding. And then what do I need to start doing that I'm not doing? I need to start drinking more water. I need to sit outside. What do I need to continue doing? And I think if you look at the statistics at the moment, it seems like most of the world is medicated right now. In South Africa, we've all been through a lot of environmental stresses as well. So Nomapelo, you know what you've been through in your life, and you know your response. And if you feel you are consistently feeling that you are not coping, that you are stressed and that you're overwhelmed, and that you feel like things are not going well, then it might be time to investigate the use of pharmaceutical drugs. But I would possibly suggest trying something more homeopathic or herbal first. But I think you would know how you're feeling. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much for these questions. It's lovely to be chatting to you all. I think I've got another one. Okay, Veronique says, I have a bad habit of switching off when I get overwhelmed. How do I deal with that? I think that's quite a normal response. So basically what we're doing is we get overwhelmed and you almost just think, you almost want to escape. When we're overwhelmed, say for instance, let's just say you've got a massive subject. That's that question, how do you bite the elephant? You eat the elephant, it is one little bite at a time. So Veronique, if you had a big, say for instance, you're under pressure, work is hectic, your studies, what I would encourage you to do is what I call a mental vomit, is write everything down. Write everything down. What am I stressed about? What are the things I have to do? Write them down into the smallest little bits. Okay, I need to email this person. I need to follow up on that. I need to meet this person. I need to read this chapter. I need to photocopy this. Write down all those things. And then you look at them and say, okay, what can take a minute or less? Okay, I can do that. I can do that. And sometimes what we need to do when we are overwhelmed is trick our minds and say to ourselves, I'll just do 10 minutes. Because you know what will happen? Often the start energy is what we need. It's the hardest bit is to start. And then Veronique, you're sitting there and 10 minutes have gone and you think, I can do this. So I would break the overwhelming stuff into the smallest little bits and start giving myself a few wins. Yes, I photocopied those notes. Yes, I emailed this lecturer. Yes, I read that first page, and then go, okay, I've done that. Well done, me. And then just carry on with the next thing. But break it into the smallest little bits, and you eat it one little bite at a time. I think that's the most important thing. Bongo has asked, does meditation also help to reduce stress? So a lot of people have misconceptions about meditation. So basically, it can work very, very well. It doesn't have to be that you need to know certain ways of meditation. It can even be just sitting there breathing and just trying to clear your mind. Or it could be sitting there chanting a specific sound, or it could even be just sitting there and just allowing your mind to flow and just gently getting it to a certain space. So yes, a lot of people, what happens with meditation is it does cause your blood pressure to reduce, and it does help you in so many ways. So yes, I would encourage if you can do some meditation, I think that would be fantastic. So we have reached just after 12, it's 12:01, and I need to respect everybody's time. I just want to say a huge thank you for being on this call. And I just want to say thank you to Regent for offering this. And their reason for offering this is they understand how important it is to try and work and to study, or to study part-time. They understand that this is a very stressful time in our lives, and they want to really add some value in your lives. So I hope that they've achieved this, and I hope I've been able to shed some light on the subject of stress management. Thank you, Regent, and thank you to the audience. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you.